Education Committee. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from our last meeting. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Health Department.
Hello.
Hi, Ms. Garrett. How are you?
Good. So I bring my March report to you guys. Activities we've been working on is, of course, it's getting warmer and the mosquitoes are coming out, so we'll be educating again and working on our plans to fight, prevent Zika, West Nile, all those mosquito-related diseases. So remembering the little logos, fight the bite, using your using your bug repellent, replacing screen holes, repairing screen holes in your windows, remembering to drain and cover areas that can collect water. The scientist who was talking to us about it last, he said the top of a soda or bottle of water is enough water, for the mosquitoes to get in there and lay their eggs. So just trying to keep the areas around your home and your work where there's not collection of water, plants, the planters, those kinds of things. And pregnant women being careful on travel outside of the country. And that updated list is kept, what countries to avoid or be careful in is kept up to date on the CDC's website, and I can look that up. So we're just getting ready to prepare for that. Last year, Tennessee had 66 travel-associated cases, so we're ramping up to get ready for that again. This month, we did some diabetes prevention programs. We have a great community prevention program. If anybody's interested in that, they can contact us. It is a year-long commitment, but it's pre-diabetes, and it's from the CDC studied to be effective that people who go through this can delay or even completely remove their risk for diabetes. So it is a really great program. Like I said, it is a year commitment of once a week meeting, but to save your health and prevent your health, it's totally free. And if we get enough people in a group, we can go to your location, your church, or your small group. So that's something we've been doing this month, reaching out to remind people about that great program that we have.
Are there meetings normally at the Health Department?
Well, right now we've had a couple of different, back when the senior center was open here in Murfreesboro, we held some there. We've held them at the library. We've done some at the Health Department. So like I said, we tried to work out one with some teachers at a school that were interested, and stuff happened, it didn't happen, but we're hoping to get back with that group again. But yeah, any kind of small group that wants to get together and commit to that, we're willing to come out. It's taught by a registered nurse who is a certified diabetic educator and a registered dietitian who's a certified diabetic educator. Plus our program is certified for diabetes prevention and education. So specialize in this and how to prevent it. We know it is a problem in our city, so working on the prevention end is really going to be key. We do a lot with the kids, and we do a lot with, but this is kind of once you've already been diagnosed with pre-diabetes, or you have some risk factors, like you were diabetic during your pregnancy. That's one of the risk factors. You have a strong family history of diabetes. Some of those risk factors that are already present in your life, this is a way you can delay or even prevent it completely. So it's an important program.
Awesome. Any questions about the report from Ms. Garrett? We will entertain a motion.
Move to approve the report, Madam Chairman.
Second.
Go ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thanks.
No, thank you.
Next month is our joint meeting at the
Yes.
Board of Education, so if you have any pressing business, you're welcome to join us there. If not, you can miss that meeting.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Community care. Anything on that, Ms. Carroll or Mayor?
We're doing good out there. Got a call from them the other day and said we're having a retirement party for some of them out there on May the 2nd.
Okay.
And so it's good that they recognize the retirements and so forth and the long years.
It is. Very good.
Otherwise, we're doing good.
The report is on your iPad if you've got any questions. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the report, Madam Chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. All right, Ms. Jolly, school building program. We've had this report for probably close to a week. I didn't note any significant changes from the month prior.
It's just strictly paying bills. No amendments or anything on it.
Okay.
Anybody has any questions?
Just has weather hurt y'all? Has weather, the rain set you back any of it?
Not really,
Maybe up out of the dirt almost?
the bus reroutes a little.
Yeah, I mean, as far as construction, like,
No, we didn't.
No roofs.
Yeah, no, good question. All right, any questions for Ms. Jolly? I'll entertain a motion.
I so move.
Second.
Very good, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Teresa.
School board report.
thank you.
Welcome, gentlemen. We've got one amendment for us.
One amendment. We do. We have one amendment tonight. This time last year, the state is trying to track expenditures in little different categories, and so they told us where they wanted us to track it, but they've changed their mind now, and they want technology expenditures. Some of them go to the instruction side, so they sent a new, it's not a whole chart of accounts, but it's line item numbers to record expenditures for certain items that you spend. And so tonight, all that we're asking in this particular case that you approve, it's not asking for more money or anything else. The money's there or spent, but as he closes out, as Mr. Sandy closes out the district, if we have it in the correct line item number, then we'll have to go back to the state again to make another correction. So it's reporting in new line item numbers.
So when they give you these changes, they could care less about your fiscal year. They'll give them to you all through the year.
Well, we don't usually see a lot. This is the technology piece for me has been probably the one that's changed most
Yeah.
often.
I just remember swinging it one way and swinging it
Well,
back.
the initial guidance they gave us is more in line with this. But
Okay.
then once the comptroller's department had approved the account combinations and everything, it was much more restrictive. So we amended and changed it.
Great.
And then I think when they were reviewing technology budgets across the state, they realized maybe we didn't go the direction. So we're going more back with what we originally said.
Okay.
With this amendment and the changes, not in what you're seeing tonight, but the next version of the budget you'll see, we will have next year's budget in line with these accounts. So,
You might tell them about something you'd be piloting this next year, dealing with per school expenditures and some things like that. They're changing
Yes.
a lot of things. So.
yes,
Yeah.
I signed us up to be in the pilot project. The feds are pushing us toward reporting expenditures by state, by school.
Okay.
The feds also talk about doing it by grade at some point. Right now, it's by school, so we will be working with a group from the state, just on getting an idea. We may be making a lot of changes, depending on what happens, what guidance we get, but just trying to see how far all the systems are away from that.
Do you know what the goal is?
Ultimately, the goal is reporting expenditures by school.
I know, but I'm
But,
just trying to figure, are you going to have a high-cost school and a low-cost school? I mean,
I
are
think
you looking for
there's-
best practices? Are you looking for student population
I
and
don't
student
think
numbers?
so.
or-
There, from time to time, there have been a number of bills that either hit the state legislature, other legislatures in other states, about what percentage are you actually spending on instruction of students
Yeah.
versus maintenance versus heating and cooling versus the other.
Okay.
And you hear all sorts of figures like, is it teachers count in that expenditure for
Yeah.
instruction, but are you spending 70%? Are you spending 80%? What are you spending? So it would not surprise me that this isn't kind of
Yeah.
a forerunner of some other piece of legislation to go with it. I'm speculating, but that's,
Yeah, well, then we also get questions, are your students in some of your less well-off schools, are they trying to evaluate the teachers in those schools by pay? I do remember when Cedar Grove was fairly new, when Mr. Gill opened that school, he hired a lot of new teachers. Average salary was low at that school. The results were very high. It doesn't necessarily correlate at all. So we don't know where they're going.
I think it'd be an interesting matrix to look at,
Oh,
to see
yes.
the scores and the salaries.
But look at this, 32 pages, spread out over
Yeah.
47 schools next year.
Yeah, but you're so sharp.
Multiply that by 47.
There we go.
Yeah.
1,200 pages, right?
Yeah.
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 But usually when the federal government wants more information, it's sort of like whatever the big print has given you, the fine print's going to take it away.
Oh, of course. Yes. Oh, yes.
You can assure yourself one thing, federal government likes numbers,
We'll give them plenty.
but that's what they want, is
I've
numbers.
warned Mark Tucker, my year-end payroll accrual that is normally barely over 2 pages will be dozens of pages this year, because that is one of the ones where we will break it down by school this year.
I saw where the School Transportation Act was signed or has passed.
There's more than one.
Right, but the one that involved the first one.
I was on the committee. Mr. Mike Snell from Rutherford County, our transportation was on the committee. That was sponsored by the Department of Education, the Governor's Office. It was also sponsored by Howard Patrol, that Department of Transportation, Governor's Office, and Department of Education. Everybody was sponsoring that one. That changes the age limit which you can drive a bus. It'll ramp up the amount of training that you have to have and some things related to that.
Considered a positive.
The second bill that's still out is the seat belt one,
Right.
and that one hasn't played out.
Right.
We've looked at the fiscal note. I didn't bring that with me tonight. If you look at the fiscal note for that, which would start a year from now, the estimated expenditure was $110,000 from the state and $12,878,000 from the local, or something like that. So that one's still out there, and I don't know exactly what will happen there.
How in the world can anybody ever enforce that? How can they enforce it? How can a bus driver ever enforce that?
But I think that's the debate that's going on in the legislature now. How do you ensure that the kid buckles and stays buckled? And the reason they're going to new buses is because they've learned that the floor, the decking for a bus was not originally designed to handle the bolt down with all of those. So that's why they're beginning to look at new. So as they expire, then you would have to replace it. Of course, the biggest cost for us is, if you're middle and high school now, it's not but 2 kids to a seat anyway. But in your elementary, where you run the bus, where you can get 3 small children to a seat, you cannot get more than 2 seat belts per seat.
So you'd have to
So
run
it
more
will be
buses.
additional buses to transport, especially for the elementary side. And,
You almost have to have a computer bus driver to know which seats are buckled up and not buckled.
We discussed in one of our meetings if it would essentially force you to have an aide
to
on
walk
every
the
bus.
aisle and see
Yeah.
that they're all buckled right now. You know.
And the aid's not buckled.
I understand. I do understand all this. I understand the issues.
Yeah.
From having spent a long time in public safety, I'm just not convinced personally that seatbelts are the way to go, because the scenarios of going into water, the scenarios of a bus catching on fire, there's nothing more frightening to me than I would just hate to arrive on the scene of a school bus on fire and 50 kids buckled in.
I read this on the internet, so it's got to be true, right? But I was looking at that, the same thing you just mentioned, and I did not realize that in the United States, if I remember my numbers correctly, there's 6 bus fires per day. Now, I would say that's not just school buses. I would say public transportations and all types of buses. But I had no idea that could be a realistic number. But anyway, that was in the article that I read. So that's something to think about, just to look at what you said.
What you mentioned earlier about the fairly end of the first bill has got more education or more training and all for the bus drivers. When will that go into effect?
That starts next year.
Right.
Now, are we going to have to pay our bus contractor a little more because they're going to have a higher quality employee because they don't all drive their own bus?
I don't
You
know.
know, and that would play into the negotiation on the contract. If they're paying somebody X number of dollars a month to drive that bus, and obviously you got to have a more educated person, that pay scale is more than likely going to go up. So is that not going to affect what we pay the bus drivers?
Well, I asked Mr. Snell, and right now, with that 25 age limit, we only had 3 that might impact of the 250 something.
So it's not overwhelming
It's
different
not.
changes.
The
It's
main
go through a class.
thing is
or
cost
something
of
like that.
training
Uh-huh.
and follow-up training and that sort of thing. Also, another interesting thing is going to be is every bus will have to put a sticker on the back. If you see this bus doing something, call this. It's like you see on tractor trailer truck. Call this number. So.
Which number are you going to put on?
Hey, we're talking about that, how to do that and how you can. So that'll be another thing
Some of the
that'll
news
pop up.
media.
So
Put the
it'll,
mayor's cell number on.
Just put Jeff Jordan's number.
Well, one of the other bills that floated around that Mr. Odom mentioned is doubling the BEP $200 per teacher. And what was the estimate of the state cost? About 100,000?
it was 110, something like that. Well, it
For
was-
us, that is about 600,000 plus. Normally, that would flow in the BEP formula. We say, oh, they can just move money around.
And that may pass, there's 2 bills in that, both of those may pass for this year to start next year. One of them is $500 for every new teacher. And I don't know the business rule on the new teacher. Is that new to you? Is that new to the profession or what? We'll get a business rule if that passes. And it was well on its way. The other one that Sam mentioned is teachers now receive $200 each year, and the state basically funds that for supplies, materials, that sort of thing. And teachers spend their own money a lot. I definitely understand that. But they're saying increase that to $400. Well, $200 times our 3,000 teacher for Rutherford County, that's a $600,000 expenditure. And again, if you go by the fiscal notes, what they say is take your current BEP and look for areas that you could reduce to transfer over to this. Well, wherever you pull that from is a hole there.
Yeah.
So
So depending on the tax rate right there.
Yeah.
it is. We'll kind of have to see how it pays out. Do you then take the money they send for raises and reduce that amount some to cover that cost or what? They like to advertise that, hey, we gave state employees and teachers 4% raise, and then come along and pass these pieces that begin to change that money. So it's a, I shouldn't say game, should I? But it certainly is, you know, you'd love full truth in advertising, let's put it that way.
Well, and that 4%,
Unfunded
remember,
mandates, what I'm talking about.
that is 4% put into the BEP cost factor. And so our average teacher pay is higher than that, than this cost factor used for budgeting. And then it's split by the state and local funding percentages. And then we have, and probably every system in the state have more teachers than the BEP formula. So we're not getting 4%. We're not getting enough money to cover a 4% raise.
And then you have to pay insurance and our
Right.
parts. And
Yeah.
that other pieces of it comes
Yeah.
out. So when you finish, right now in
Yeah.
our current budget is 3%.
Yeah.
And it appears right now you're still some unknown, and they haven't gone home yet from the legislature. But it does appear that we'll be able to balance our budget without a tax increase. Over the last several years, really, since I've been in, we opened Stewart's Creek, we had to borrow against our interfund bank for roughly $11 million. We think we're down in the 5 to 6 million.
Right. With this draft,
With-
8.
With 8 with this draft.
With this
8.
draft, yes, sir.
You know, and I was reading the sheriff's reduction. If you take that, we're actually spending less than we're getting if you're paying off the 11 you had from the other. So we still operate over $1,000 per pupil less than the state average. So your school system is very efficient in paying attention to it and trying to get all we can out of the dollar. And we'll share all of that with you when we see next meeting, hopefully, but you have the copy tonight, and if there are changes, there may not be major changes, there may be something in there to address that 600,000 or something in that. That's certainly likely, if it continues to passage.
Jeff, will you make sure that the members of the Budget Committee also get an advance copy of this?
They have.
They have? Okay.
Yes.
Madam Chairman, I move to approve the technology amendment.
Second.
And
All
the
in
budget,
favor?
Jeff.
Aye.
Any,
call.
need a roll call? Okay.
Commissioner Cook?
Aye.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
If I may share one other piece of information, Ms. Cook reminded me coming in today that we at Laverne Thursday, the 27th, doors open at 6, program starts at 7, the Surviving the Storm, the WSMV's programs at Laverne Middle School. Public is invited to that. Maybe you've seen the press release today, but U.S. News and World Report released today their rankings of high schools in the state and the nation. And our Central Magnet School is number 1,
Congratulations.
best school in the state of Tennessee, it says. It is 10th in the nation in the Magnet School and 37th in the nation overall schools. And they evaluate something like 22,000 schools
Wow.
or something like. This is really their first group that's gone from 6th grade all the way through 12th grade. And U.S. News and World Report has how they calculate. Some of it's ACT, some of it's advanced placement courses and scores and things like that. But Rutherford County's got something to be very proud of
That's awesome.
in that respect.
Mention also that came out in the media today that
Yes.
Stewart's Creek has more students going to the Governor's School for the Arts than any other school in the state other than the one in Germantown. And apparently Dr. Russell, I believe it is doing a good job of that.
Central Magnet also got something here a while back, like being 27th in the country in teaching financial literacy or something. So there's a lot of awards coming down. A couple of our schools have got summer programs, been approved grants for that, to work with students that need reading assistance. Kittrell and Christiana Elementary. Was I supposed to say that? I'm not sure. But anyway, they've
Every
received
now and then we
grants.
actually get something right.
You know.
Because until that long ago, we were having a conversation about whether that could turn Central Middle into a Central Magnet. And there was some pushback.
Yeah.
Some of the surrounding other principals didn't want to lose their best and brightest students.
Any other business for the school board? Thank you. Our next meeting with you all, we'll have a joint meeting with the Board of Education, Budget, Health and Ed on May the 24th at 5:30.
23rd.
Oh,
Tuesday, the 23rd.
Madam Chairman, before we
Yes.
let these guys go, I'd like to open up a conversation maybe that, being a member of the Planning Commission, the Rose County Planning Commission, we're looking at, well, there's 3 members of the Planning Commission here. We're looking at growth that's going to rival what we had back in the early 2000s. And it's a scary thing to some of us to think where we'll be 10 years from now. And I know I think Commissioner Jordan brought up some infrastructure issues with the Amaville project and some of those things that may happen. And I'd like for us to begin to think about more to the package than just that's the place that we need to build a school. And I'd like for us to think about transportation and how we're going to get kids in and to those campuses, especially those campuses, a little bit more safely. But we're adding to the Amaville Road project. We're adding to a road that a lot of people think is overburdened right now and maybe a little bit dangerous. So I'd like for us to begin to talk about transportation and road structures and make that part of the package as to what it might do to that particular zone or that area as we build, especially these campus schools, and what that's going to do, and what are our needs, our long-term needs as far as transportation there, and not just build the schools and then listen to the complaints about traffic and traffic issues. And I'd like for it to be part of the process, and I'm not exactly sure how to go about it. I know we probably need to get the highway department in and the planning office in to take a look at what improvements we may need to make to that particular area or zone to handle the traffics as we go. That we've been growing by leaps and bounds for the last 35 years, and the next 30 to 35 years it is going to be a real chore. We've been able to handle that growth, but when we get up to 650 or 700,000 people, I'm not sure that the road structure that we have is going to be able to handle that. And I just think it has to be part of our plan going forward, is to make sure that that infrastructure is there, or we know what to do to the infrastructure to handle that growth in that particular zone as we're building, especially the campus schools. So I'd like for us to adopt some type of a policy that we can look at how the growth, especially in our school system, is affecting a particular area or a particular zone, and are we capable of handling that growth without improving the infrastructure there.
Well, I guess one of the things that I guess I'm hearing you say, Jeff, is that as you go through the site selection process, I'm sure there are many variables that you consider, everything from location to topography. Infrastructure is probably a key piece that you would look at, I would imagine. And so that's part of it. What I'm hearing you say is that we want a true assessment of the impact on infrastructure and who's going to pay for that. Because, like in SMRTA, part of the money's coming from SMRTA to improve the roads. Part of it's going to be on us. Part of it was, maybe built into the improvements. But the number one question I get right behind when is the school going to open is, when are you going to improve the road? That's always the number 2 question.
I think I'd like to go a little step further. I think we really need to look and see whether we really want to keep building 3 schools together. I live there right with Stewart's Creek, and it worked out fairly well because we have one road on one side, one road on another side. We have 2 other potential entrances that if traffic and SRO back there, and I've already talked about the potential need to open up one of those for letting school out, to move the campus faster. But they're there. There's 4 total entrances going into there. Very few other places have that. Rocky Fork, the complex there, there's the 2-school complex there. It's one end, and that's it until maybe someday there's another entrance on the other side, several years down the road. So infrastructure being what it is in Rutherford County, do we really want to keep doing that? I like the idea of it, but can we find suitable places? So I think that's something I'd just like you to keep in mind, that maybe we need to step back and take another look. The board does.
It's getting harder and harder to find those big tracts of property.
It really is.
There's not 100 acres out there in every neighborhood, because it takes 100 acres for 3 schools.
And with infrastructure and accessibility.
And stuff, so you might could put an elementary school on 15 acres, the middle school on 20, and stuff. A lot of problems.
Your conversation reminded me of one thing. Former Superintendent Ela Carlton told me probably 35, 40 years ago, better build the schools near the children or you'll be transporting them for 50 years. And there's some truth to that, but there's not any place in County now they're not already there. But I agree. I agree with you that it's a little bit cheaper for us to cluster together simply because of utilities. When you have to bring in that sewer, you have to bring in the water.
No, it's a complex
and
issue.
that it is a little bit cheaper to kind of put it together and kind of do the pads. Just to kind of update you, met with the architect last week. Should be at Rockville High this next month. Should be in place. He met with the principals of Siegel High. It was some draft drawings for that addition. Met with the Oakland Middle principal, Mr. Clardy and all, and I was there too to look at some additions to that. We did tell him, based upon our last meeting with you, which said, take a look at where you can add. Mr. Carter's taking a look at the Christiana Elementary area, both Christiana Elementary and Buchanan Elementary. And I'll bring you that list. We still have 16 schools that grew over 4%, but the numbers over now are some like 7.5 and 8.3 and stuff. So in 2000, I believe it's 2006 and 7, it's in that fact book. You can look it back. It's the year, I think Rutherford County grew something like 1,800 students. And we can't stand that very easily. That was huge.
The issue is going to compound.
Absolutely.
It's an inbred problem. We're bragging about Stewart's Creek and some of the things that they've accomplished, and Central Magnet and some of the things that they accomplished. All of those things are very, very good, but all of those things are going to attract more and more and more students because they want a piece of what's going on in Rutherford County. So all of this is going to compound the situation as we're going forward, and where we put the schools and how we transport students is it's important to me. We talked at a little training session with the Planning Commission yesterday morning about growth and how we've handled the growth, and we no longer have the need for sewage septic systems, that we're doing it a different way with step systems and those types of things, which is really good, but it's allowing us to build where we couldn't build before. And they mentioned dairy farms and how many dairy farms we had 30, 35 years ago, and they no longer exist in Rutherford County because we're building on those dairy farms now. And they were ideal for milking cows because you couldn't get a plow on them. But now we can develop them and build on them, and the whole system is geared toward us having explosive growth. And I just think we have to be more cognizant of planning where that growth is going to be, and then how we're going to handle that growth, and the infrastructure part of it, especially the
Just widen the
roads,
scope of
roads and
it's more than the
transportation.
school. Yeah.
And we really have to be mindful about not just Amaville and what's going on there, but what's coming next and after that, and we really have to be looking ahead instead of reacting to what we're doing. I took a little tour Sunday afternoon out in the Kittrell, not in the Kittrell, but in the Las Casas area, and went out to the Guy James property out in there, and the roads are great. I mean, they're in beautiful shape, but it's hard to pass on some of those roads out there, and that's what we're going to be building on in the future. So we need to really be, and I know I'm preaching to the choir to some of you guys, but we just have to be more cognizant of how we're going to develop and where we're going to develop, and then how we're going to handle getting people to and from. That instead of it being, well, how are you going to get kids to there, we need to ask that question before we build. It's how we're going to get kids to there and get them there safely.
We're
Mayor,
actually
thank
making road changes that the state engineers and all took a look at. We had to do a survey for Rockville High. So there'll be some lane changes and some things there to go with Rockville High.
There's another entrance, an exit too in the back.
Right.
When it comes right down to the bottom line, to me, is if we have to improve roads when we build schools, it should be part of the cost of that project to the county to do that. And we shouldn't shy away from that. We should just head on attack that issue, that it is a concern. It's been a concern in the past, but it's really going to be a concern for those of us that are be around for the next 20, 25 years anyway.
I think the mayor had something he was going to add.
It's right. I follow along with all this discussion that's going on here. I've already told a few of you. It's pretty obvious that the people that have projected all this growth were correct. It's going to continue to grow, and It's 1 to 2 schools per year, period, and maybe more, especially in Middle Tennessee and in 4 or 5 of our counties. This is not sustainable. We cannot fund the capital cost of schools. We cannot fund the cost of these operating costs without some major changes in our revenue stream. So whatever that means, I don't know. We're locked in on development tax. We need to think creatively. We've got to ask for some relief on certain counties like us to give us some abilities, some tools in our toolbox to generate the revenue. We cannot support this. The only thing we got, folks, is the property tax. And it's going to be a burden that our county citizens cannot sustain. So I'm not telling you, I don't have any solutions. So yes, it's all about infrastructure, but yes, it's all about dollars. And unless we get some real relief out of the state of Tennessee or out of our local ability to fund these things that are going to occur, we're going to have some serious problems balancing a budget every year from now on.
Just sidebar, the Tennessee Improve Act apparently is passing through, and there's a county option. Is that like a referendum to add?
Yeah, that would be a referendum. All that's about transportation.
And I know that's a
roads
small,
and
it's
bridges.
a penny, but
That won't help us with schools.
roadway.
It'll help
I'm just
your
thinking,
road
102 is a state road.
That's right.
Could we generate another
Well,
million a year with?
our county will get about, when the whole 6 cents is in, it'll get about $1.3 million of new money every year. The county highway department will.
And if we did this, if we took advantage of this pursuit of a referendum, and then we could gain another penny, is that correct?
Yeah, and we can gain some other, they give us some other tools for us to decide how we want to, which pieces of the available taxes that we might want to increase, even a sales tax. I don't know whether they took that out or not, quite honestly, right now. So, yep, there's some road money coming forward there, but what I'm talking about is reoccurring dollars. When they open this new high school, I don't know what it is anymore, Jeff. I think at one point you told her it's $4 million of reoccurring money every year that's going forward.
It was 3, and now it's getting up to 4, Jeff.
Yeah, and we'll hope it doesn't go above that.
So I'm just telling you, there's a systemic
Changes
problem
get made.
in our county, in Williamson County. You see what Williamson County, some of you already know, they have had some private acts that allowed them to put on some very large impact fees. And we're going to have to unwind this Public Sector 1101, this County Powers Relief Act, which gave us no relief. It just said we can't do anything.
The mayor is totally right in what Jeff is saying here. Back in 2011, I was placed on Cumberland Region Tomorrow Board for Rutherford County. And Cumberland Region Tomorrow is I guess you would call it a think tank of Middle Tennessee. It's the 10-county area that surrounds Davidson County. And we look at these things, the growth and this sort of thing, and you look at it's made up of individuals who come from all different walks of life, but they have an opportunity to look at these things. And starting all the way back in 2011, they were looking at these growth that we were seeing coming from the Nashville area. And they took all types of surveys and things to see what people were looking for, and education was one of those things. And I remember particularly that Metro Nashville and then Cumberland Region Tomorrow, they hired the services of a statistical individual. Her name was Robin Rather. And she's Dan Rather's daughter is who she was. But she worked for major corporations to do statistical studies for them. And they used her to find out what was going to happen in this area and the future out there. And one of these things she predicted was this growth we're talking about right here, and what we'd have to do with the infrastructure and things of this type. And quite interesting information that she presented. In fact, it was so interesting, I asked Robin to come and present it to the Tennessee Farm Bureau at a meeting one time, and we presented it to all the county farm bureaus out across there. It was so shocking what she presented as far as what would happen, and whatever, they didn't believe it. I think the thing that really caught their attention was the fact that she was a vegetarian, and this was among a bunch of farmers, and they didn't go for that, but Robin had pinpointed it, and for what she had shown there is pretty much what Jeff has brought out here too. And it's just showing that what we're saying there in Metro. And the thing that was so interesting in this report was the survey that she took, and she took it not only in Metro Nashville, but she took it in Rutherford County, she took it in Murray County, she took it up in Robertson County. The survey covered that whole area out there, and the people, no matter where they lived, if they lived in downtown Nashville, if they lived out here in rural Robertson County, which is primarily agricultural, whatever, when they had a list, she had them, what was your most concerns? It varied very little. Everybody in these same areas had the same concerns. And the same concerns were infrastructure. Where are we going and how are we going to do it? Can I walk to where I want to go? Can I ride to where I want to go? And how are we going to get the transportation to do this, and how we're going to pay for it? And I think it's a good way to open our discussion, or end our discussion here.
Well, and I think as we explore broadening this scope, I think it's important for Rutherford County to, take a lead, be leaders in this area, because our state legislatures, the ones we've been electing, didn't take a lead for us to help us with infrastructure. So the leadership's going to have to come from somewhere. So I think we're just going to have to step up and figure it out, and just figure out a way to implement it, and and garner support, because I think that there are other counties, exactly like you're saying, there are other counties who need the same help. They're looking for the same solutions. So.
It's going to be tough with legislators, because they're going to tell us the canned response to give everybody,
Right.
tighten your belt,
Mhm.
live within your means. And that's just not realistic when you're adding 1,500 students a year, which is where we're headed.
Right.
Probably the next 3 years.
It's over 12 this year.
It's over 12 this year.
Same period
And
last
stuff, but that's just not realistic, and it's one thing, we've talked about building these schools, the $59 million, but that's not the killer. The killer is the $4 million a year, which is growing at the rate of inflation or more. So in a few years, that'll be $5 million a year, then it'll be $6 million a year and stuff. So that's what beats you over the head, because we don't want to start borrowing money for reoccurring expenses. Then we really are
Right.
stepping off the cliff.
Anything else for this group? Any other new business? All right, we'll see you on May 23rd. Get adjourned.